Good.
Okay, Brian O'Neill, thanks for coming, running for College Board. And can you please just give us a little background about yourself and why you're running for office?
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity just to introduce myself and to share my positions. My name is Brian O'Neill. I'm a longtime resident here in Santa Monica. I'm a father of two, and in a nutshell, I'm running to serve. I'm at that age where I want to start to give back, to really serve my community in a more active way. And I've been a professor for over 20 years, and that includes both at the university level and community college level. In fact, the last 15 years I've been teaching at Cal State Long Beach, as well as Long Beach City College. So I'm in the trenches. I'm a current professor. In fact, classes start tomorrow at Cal State, a week from tomorrow at City College, like SMC. And I want to bring that knowledge and that experience, sort of in the trenches experience, to the College Board, and really help guide the College Board during these difficult times with the shift to distance learning, the challenge of trying to create true student equity on our campus, and also just foster even better relations with the larger Santa Monica community. SMC is a treasure as it is, the #1 transfer to UC systems. We're all familiar with that. It's done a great job over the years. The Broad Stage, the Performing Arts Center, the Emeritus College is another treasure for our elderly residents. But I think we can do even better, particularly serving our local Santa Monica students. And that's one area that I would want to really actively engage the SMC administration as a board member. So I'm running to serve and to utilize my long experience in higher education for my local community here in Santa Monica.
Great, thanks, Brian. And you said in your questionnaire that you pledged to be an ally to all BIPOC and disadvantaged members of the SMC community. Can you just give an example of how you have done that in the past, and also or how you would do so using your role on the board?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. At Long Beach City College, we innovated the Promise program, which is now implemented here at SMC. And a big part of that was, bringing underrepresented students, local students, to the community college, in this case, Long Beach. And I was involved in some of the recruitment drives we had on campus to bring local high school students to campus. And then more recently, since George Floyd's murder, our faculty, and I know this is going on at SMC as well, but we've been very active in equity training, how to dismantle white supremacy, discussions among faculty, as well as in student groups on campus. And that's an area. I'm a historian. I'm a US historian. So some of this stuff has weighed me down for many years, to be honest with you, just the sort of deep-seated racism in our society. And I think the challenge now is to really go inward, and this would be among faculty members, among students. So as far as equity is concerned, I see it as a two-pronged kind of process, really building programs to assist and attract and retain BIPOC students, and other disadvantaged students from one way or another, and then also training the faculty. I think long-term, the solution here has got to include dismantling the psychology of white supremacy, which again is sadly, deeply ingrained in our society, even here in progressive Santa Monica and California. We see that. So in those two ways.
Thank you. And Amy, go ahead.
Uh, I was reading through your statements and such to the questions, and thank you for taking the time to think through the things in your responses. And I find that there's a disconnect with what you're just saying now and then your disapproval of supporting Proposition 16 or Reimagine LA. But you may have your reasons, and I'd like to hear what those are.
Well, I'll be frank. I haven't dived deep into that proposition, and so I think actually I had put to be determined. So did it come out as no in my questionnaire? There's a few things that I'm actually getting up to speed. This is the beginning of my semester. I have two children in elementary school who are all, remote at Edison starting tomorrow. So I'd have to get back to you on that one.
I think it's really important that that's something that you understand, especially given the state of where things are at, so that you have an answer. Okay?
Yeah. No, I will. And just full disclosure, this is the first time I've ever run for any elected office. And so there's going to be a learning curve. And yeah, so for as far as that proposition, I'd love to get back to you and give you a fuller answer. But
Great. Why don't you take a look at those two, which you answered no on, which is Proposition 16,
okay.
and then also Reimagine LA, which I believe is now called Measure J, but I'm not sure on the exact name. You can just shoot us a message with what you think about them.
Sure, be happy to.
Okay, great. And I wanted to ask you what you thought about making SMC parking lots a safe place for homeless students to sleep in their cars.
This is a toughie. I mean, the homeless issue in general, and then also with concerning homeless students. Right now, I would be opposed to that just in terms of how to control it, I guess. Who's a student, who's not a student. I live in the Pico neighborhood, and overall by Centinela, we've got growing homeless colonies right on the other side of the border, the LA side. And so personally, I've seen growing negative impacts of the growing numbers of homeless. This proposition to have essentially a controlled or protected homeless area in one of the parking lots, I could see the merits. I don't know if it's been tried anywhere else. I'd want to know, has there been a success rate on that? So it's an interesting proposition. My sort of gut feeling is this could have many unintended negative impacts for especially the residents around SMC, that live in the neighborhood.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question? Yeah, Dami.
Hello, how are you? Full disclosure, I am an instructor at Santa Monica College, but interested in reading up and your background and what you'd bring. So I'm interested because there is there's a lot of movement to kind of update Santa Monica College, and always evolving. And I'm pretty aware of UC Long Beach and some of the interesting programs down there. What would you bring? I mean, what are some programs at Long Beach that you see could be implemented at Santa Monica College? And especially in the respect that, like, the school now is talking a lot about reintroducing a lot more vocational training or continuing job training and things like that. So, floor is yours.
Yeah, and that's an area I see parallels between Long Beach City College and SMC. Long Beach City College has been successful in that area, vocational training. We've had some programs. I mean, there's still a bit of aerospace in the Long Beach area, and aviation related jobs that we've begun programs in. And I know at SMC there's a strong and growing film program, film production, film and video, media, and those would dovetail really well with a lot of the local businesses here in Santa Monica, West LA. So I would definitely promote, continuing growing those links between local business and the college. I've been involved personally in a lot of study abroad programs. In fact, I ran a program to Vietnam for several years, and that's an area of just not only personal interest, but I'm a true believer in, for students to get abroad, one way or another, learn another language, improve their language skills. It opens up worlds literally, and that's an area where my expertise or my experience really could come to bear as well.
Thank you. And Ed.
Hi, Brian.
Hey, Ed.
What do you think are the sharpest distinctions between you and the other candidates in your race? Where would you really differ from them?
Well, yeah, no, and let me just stay right off. I think the three incumbents in the race are all good people, good Democrats, so there's nothing personal. But what I would bring to the table, and which would differentiate me, is just new perspectives. Number one, I'm a professor. I'm actively out there. I'm online tomorrow morning, right? And all my classes are starting in the next 2 weeks. And so just again, that first, hand kind of in the trenches perspective would be new and unique. They've all been there, I think 16 and 20 years. I think board member Rader and Quinones Perez have been there since, Armanoff's been there since 04. I think Quinones Perez since 2000. Be that as it may, right? They're long-term incumbents, means they're being reelected. That can be a good thing. But I would bring fresh perspectives, right? Instead of these long-term incumbents. And
so you don't have any objections to how they voted and the policies they put in place. Your view of differentiation is just that it's good to have new blood, but from time to time.
Not just new blood, but to be humble, this new blood. I mean, just somebody coming in with my credentials and my experience and where I'm at in life would really be a new jolt. And then also as a family man with 2 young children in the Santa Monica school system at Edison, we live very close to the college. We're impacted. I know the college has annexes around the city, but the main campus. So I would always, judiciously look at issues from the perspective of a resident, right? And
okay,
how
thank
does
you.
it impact our neighborhoods?
Thank you. And
Time, John.
let's go to
Question?
we have time. Derek's up next.
Okay, that's fine.
Hi, Brian.
Hi.
So last I looked, there was not a class on the United States Constitution, the Bill of Rights specifically, or civil liberties. What are your thoughts on that?
And I'd have to dive deep into what has been offered, in the past at SMC. It's a big curriculum, but that should be taught. I mean, I'm a U.S. historian, and so I know in my classes, students get a heavy dose of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and how our government was formed and how it was designed and how it's supposed to function and sometimes doesn't function. So I guess I would agree with you that those are important topics that all students should have at least a basic knowledge of. I know in a lot of colleges that is usually either dumped in an American government requirement or a U.S. history requirement. But it's something I think should be emphasized and required. And if it's not now, that's something I would look into.
All right, so now we have time for Ed's question.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to change my question a little bit and just kind of piggyback on what Derek just said, because we know that we need to have more ethnic studies. We need to have more curriculum that speaks to the diversity of us and the things that we need to change in our society to have a more equitable society. 100% in agreement with that. However, it makes no sense to put those on the surface and then not also teach the system that we use to correct all of those ailments. So we need to have a well-rounded, rigorous curriculum of civil studies to go along with and admittedly the lack of ethnic studies that we have, and a lack of different points of view about our own U.S. history that somehow got basically erased out of our history books. We need to bring those to the forefront, but we need to have the civil studies in there as well to educate how we should and can go about correcting those ailments of our society. I'm sorry, that's just a statement.
Yeah, no, and it's along the lines of what Derek was just expressing, and I agree with that. But ethnic studies, and I teach many courses that are under the rubric of ethnic studies. When I was in graduate school, I actually started out as a Chicano historian, and then I was told by a few professors, "You'll never get a job because you're not Chicano."
Right.
But I've been a student and a professor of ethnic studies for many, many years, and I support all of that being in the curriculum. All that is American history, but I do agree with what you two were just expressing, that if that's to the exclusion of learning about how our government was formed and what it is to be engaged in American civil society, civics as it used to be called, then I'm against it. We can, I mean, as you sort of alluded to, Ed, even in the courses labeled ethnic studies, whether it's African American studies or Asian American studies, what have you, you could put in a requirement that part of that course would include, and most of them do, how that particular group, ethnic group, has fared, vis-a-vis the American government or the American ideals of what our government should be. So I think that can be done.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Brian. Appreciate you coming by today. Great to meet you.
Yeah, thank all you guys.